Welcome, everybody, to the 13th episode of the EveryWei podcast. I am Everyday, as always, and with me is 𝗧𝗜𝗍𝗑, and we do have a special guest, the CEO and owner of your VCS Spring Split Champions, Team Flash, Mr.
Hey,
Terence
guys.
Ting. It's lovely to have you here. Do you want to just introduce yourself for our audience?
Sure, yeah. So, I'm 28 this year. Started Team Flash about almost 2.5 years ago. We're actually a Singaporean organization, but we made a very aggressive strategy to come to Vietnam. To help the local ecosystem, help the players. We started actually in another game, not League of Legends. So
All right.
we actually invested in Arena of Valor. In Vietnam, it's a really huge game right now. It's the one mobile gaming title. So last year we won 2 world championships for Arena of Valor. Some of the best. Yeah, not many people know about that, but I thought I'll put that out there.
No, fair enough. Plug whatever you want, man. That's awesome. Double
Yeah,
world
yeah.
championship. Doesn't really matter what it's in. That's very impressive.
Yeah, so and then we decided to make the move into League of Legends because we know the VCS is one of the biggest esport leagues, not only in Vietnam, but I would say even in Southeast Asia. There's not many teams that have a similar viewership and branding value for a team that's in that league. So the VCS was an obvious choice, because we've really made inroads into Vietnam over the past 2 years, and then uh, halfway through last year, around June, July, we started to really look into the possibility of signing a League of Legends team in Vietnam, and that's when the move came about. I'll speak a bit more about how everything came about. Why did we decide to pick this roster to
Mhm.
acquire? A lot of story behind that. Yeah. So
Yeah, don't worry. We want to pick your brain on all of that. But I think let's start with what's obvious. You guys won the split. You Flash beat 𝗬𝗠𝗏, which I hate to say
Big
it,
surprise.
none of us really predicted. 𝗬𝗏𝗏, obviously,
yeah,
a very, very strong team. But
yeah.
you won. No one can take that away. How does that feel as an owner and
Yeah.
sort of just as a fan of your own org? How's that feel?
I mean, honestly, like it's really something that we didn't expect. I'll be honest, because we went to the final. We weren't sure because firstly Yoshino was our starting top laner for the entire season. He couldn't play. He had a health issue. We only detected it about a week before the playoffs.
Oh.
So it wasn't the best situation. We really had to
That's
bring.
rough.
Yeah, and obviously hopes weren't very high, because we didn't have the main lineup that we hoped to have. But that's why esports is so great, right? There's always so many stories, and there's always the potential for an upset to happen. Especially in the final. We won't be the first, and we won't be the last. So I think going up against GAM, the biggest name in League of Legends, one of the top teams in Vietnam, and they're the defending champions as well. It wasn't easy. We had a game plan and we managed to execute the game plan, around Stark as well. So Stark came in and we decided to I think the key is that we adapted really fast and we made good decisions, in terms of in game and in the lead up to preparation, we made all the right decisions. We kept the team morale high as well. And I think most importantly, there wasn't a lot of pressure on the team,
Yeah,
because
that makes sense.
nobody expected us to win. We were the underdogs and we were playing online as well, which honestly I think
That's
helped.
true.
Yeah, because our team is a bit younger, they don't have as much experience, but they've got a lot of raw potential. So like another player of the team, like KD, our starting mid laner, he has so much raw potential, but throughout the season it's been a bit hard for him, because he's a bit younger and he freezes up a bit on stage, and the fact is that he is a really good player and we've tried to work on his
He had an
confidence.
awesome split.
Yeah, rookie of the split, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
he has a lot of potential. He was actually schooled under Optimus as well, under the old days. The past couple of seasons he spent almost 2 years with Optimus, learning the mid lane, learning how to play the mid lane. So honestly he always had that potential, and over time he managed to build that confidence in the team. I just think everything came together at the right time, when we beat GAM last weekend, like in terms of the confidence of the team, the morale, everybody was in high spirits, and even if we lost, I think they would still be quite positive, to be honest. So in a way, it was almost like an online rank game, even though it was the grand final VCS. Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
I wanted
awesome.
to ask you about the Yoshino Stark situation a little bit more in detail because So
Yeah.
Stark, did he play a single scrim in this regular season? Or
I'll be honest, start this season, he has had a bit of more of like a mentorship role with the
I
team.
thought
So
so. Yeah.
yeah, he's been mentoring the team and he's done really well. He has really helped players like Yoshino, the young players coming through, learn the game, especially the macro side of things. The macro side of League of Legends is obviously the one that takes a bit of time. Most players have that skill. People like Yoshino, everybody can see from the start, this guy has a lot of raw skill and potential, and that's probably what most people think of when they look at Team Flash. Even from last season, we probably had one of the most stacked rosters last season going to the finals. When we lost the game and then we lost to Loki. We probably had a lot of people put us as potentially 50-50 against game in the final. I think last season. So funny enough, this season it happened when we weren't the favorites or weren't even like even odds to win. Yeah. So we really had to think about start through this season. It wasn't easy because he is a veteran player of the VCS. Everybody knows who Stark is, and there was a bit of controversy as well from last season. With Stark, but thankfully, this season he has really we have really managed to work with Stark to give him a successful role in the team to work with the players directly. I think there's a lot of potential for him to even transition maybe into more of a coaching or analyst role in the future. He also does a lot of content creation. His YouTube is actually growing quite fast. So for Stark, we do hope that he will stay with our organization in the long term. Yeah.
But he wasn't. There was never the intention to swap him in playoffs to have a different playstyle. It was just because of the health issue.
Honestly, I think I will put most of it to the latter. So it's really more of the health issue that Yoshino encountered. Otherwise, I think most likely we would have started him. But on hindsight, actually, Stark does have a lot of experience playing in high pressure matches. So there is a case, that if we had really reviewed the situation, maybe Stark might have started anyway. We don't know about that. But all in all, I would say most likely if Yoshino was in 100% fit condition to play, we most likely would have started him. But on hindsight now, the decision doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah, we kind of read it as we obviously didn't know about the issues with Yoshino. We sort of read it as bringing in someone that might not necessarily have the same mechanical skill these days as Yoshino. It's not the Stark played badly; he was pretty good. But he'd be a very calm voice.
Exactly.
To steady the nerves, particularly going into like game 5 of a final against _𝗏. I would imagine him being in the Discord with the team would have helped a lot. So I think maybe it wasn't planned, but I think it definitely had benefits.
Yeah, really worked out well in the end, right? So he's been a very good presence to have around the team throughout the entire season. From last season, he was starting most of the matches ever since we brought him in the transfer window. But this season, he's really had to play a more big part role, but he's played that very well. And then when he had to come in for the playoffs, he did that very well as well. So honestly, we have no complaints, and he's done really well for the team. Yeah.
Very glad to hear it. So sort of zooming out from the specific playoff final, unless you have anything else to comment on your way. How is the split in general? Because coming into it, I know we did a podcast episode with Jensen, the former EVOS coach.
Jensen.
At the start of the split, we were sort of talking about what we were expecting, and we all agreed that it was going to be a 𝗏𝗏 Flash battle in the league. And EveryWei was the one that was bold enough to say that he thought Flash would win the split. So he was right.
I didn't see that prediction, but thanks, mate.
So how was this split overall in terms of what the expectation was and how actually things have worked out?
I think it was really like a bit of a roller coaster, if I'm to be honest. Yeah, because I remember on the opening day, I've been to the studio to watch most of the matches actually, at GG Studio, and I try to be there as much as I can, even though we're busy on the business side of things, and we want to be there to try and support the players live as well. I think that means a lot to them. So I was there before the coronavirus situation hit, and then first day, opening day of the season, we lose to Evos 2-1.
Hmm.
That was a bit of a dampener, because we kind of didn't expect to lose to Evos. Maybe, yeah, sure, take one game off, but we didn't expect to lose that because I know that Evos, they have a more long-term strategy. They're not really looking at they didn't really invest in this split. So it was a bit disheartening to see, because we did invest quite a bit, out of all the teams in the VCS. I think everybody knows that Team Flash is really serious about investing into the structure of the team, the players and all of that. So we did invest quite a bit, and it was a bit disheartening to see, on opening day of the season we lost to Evos, and then going through the season we started to stabilize. I think the obviously one of the early high points in the season was when we beat Gam 2-1. That was the
Denying
first
the perfect season, in fact.
yeah. That was the only loss they had,
Yeah.
throughout the entire regular season, right? So that was honestly one of the high points. And then, we started to struggle again. So it was sort of up, down, to give you an idea. Until we reached the playoffs, and kind of like because it has been down up the entire season, we kind of like didn't have much high expectations. Obviously, as the owner and also telling my team, we got to give the team confidence, hype them up. But honestly, at the back of our minds, we're thinking, we'll be happy with a top two finish this season. I did have a bet with one of my managers that we will win the VCS this season, but halfway through, I wasn't that confident as well. To be very honest.
So maybe it's a little bit too specific, but I was wondering if there's anything to the Flash Secret rivalry and why Flash is always struggling against Secret. And if you were relieved when EVOS actually took out Secret in an upset in playoffs.
Yeah, I mean the Secret situation is a bit funny, yeah, to be honest, because we seem to lose the Secret a lot. Before that, they were low. Last season we lost the low key. This season we lost the Secret. I don't think we beat them much at all. I'm not sure what the head-to-head record is now, but I'm pretty sure we're on the
This
negative
year,
side.
04.
So we seem to struggle against them. They seem to have us figured out, and I know when I speak to the team and try and get insights into why we're struggling with Secret. It's kind of like I think there's a mental block against them. So it's sort of like something to move. Over time, we got to figure out maybe a new strategy to play against them. Honestly, we were a bit more terrified of Secret than Gam. Which is surprising, right? Like most people would. Secret also struggled a bit. I think the second half of the season, after they got taken over, they kind of lost to quite a few teams as well besides us. I mean, they didn't lose to us, but after they beat us, they started losing quite a bit because I was looking at the results. So it's kind of surprising, to see their form a bit erratic as well going to the playoffs, and then losing to Evos 2-3. A bit unexpected as well because we thought that they would take the game against Evos, but Evos has a really good coach, Violet, right? So he also coach for the season, and yeah, so Evos has a really good game plan as well. So I wasn't fully surprised, but it was definitely a good thing for us that we're playing Evos rather than Secret in the playoffs. Yeah.
Yeah, we were going to ask you if there was a big sigh of relief when EVOS got that win, because I think there's definitely a matchup advantage in the favour of Secret. I kind of wanted to ask, and this is a little bit of a deviation, but we'll get back on track after. As an owner, looking at the VCS, how is it now that Secret has entered the arena? They're obviously a massive global org. I would, and correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe I'm just dumb, they're probably the biggest org in the VCS, but not in Vietnam necessarily, right? How does that change, or does it change at all, how you're kind of approaching the business side of Flash?
That's a really good question, man. I do respect Secret a lot. I actually grew up with Dota 2 and not League of Legends, so obviously I know Secret's name pretty well. They've done really well. Dota 2, they started with Puppy as co-owner. So I've been in esports for more than 10 years, since 2006, and I was really a lot in Dota in the early days. I really liked Dota. I played it a lot. I did content on it as well. And then when I started my own organization 2.5 years ago, we decided to invest in the Dota team in Malaysia. I think they made top 8 at a regional qualifier, but we didn't manage to go to any majors. So Dota is extremely competitive in sport. The ecosystem is extremely competitive. Top teams every season. The names always change, but Secret has managed to stay like constantly at the top, right? And the fact that they've invested in the VCS, I think it's a really good move because it lifts the profile of the league as a whole. An organization as massive as Secret coming into Vietnam and investing into the league, building up a team, and they've done really well. I think they've invested a lot even into their game house as well. So the game house now that they have, they posted pictures. It's really nice to see that kind of support, in Vietnam because before Flash came in, to a certain extent, Evos as well. Before this more international orgs came in, I think most of it was locally run teams, and not to say that they're not good, but I think there's just a different level of professionalism and support when it comes to international orgs like us, because we have a different way of doing things. We know what the players need, and we know what to give them. Honestly, we came in, we knew that this team could win, but they didn't really have a good foundation because of their previous system. Certain things were not operationally sound. So like team organizations like us really give the players an opportunity to be better overall. Yeah.
Yeah, we spoke with John Yao a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. I try not to say I'm a fan of any one team because, being unbiased I think is a good thing. Though I have openly said that Yoshino is my favorite. So read into that what you will. I think it's really exciting to have Secret coming in, just because I think getting Western eyes on the league is great. Obviously, maybe I'm a little bit biased because we cater towards a Western audience because we're English speaking. But I think it's very exciting. Have you sort of looked at it like, well, if Secret are pulling eyes in, we don't want all of those eyes to be on Secret. Yeah. Right? So is there any strategy to sort of get some of them onto Flash?
Yeah, that's why we've thought a bit about, how to build more of an international brand. We're really hoping to start with MSI because obviously that gives us a lot of opportunity to reach out to a wider audience outside Vietnam, especially if we do well at MSI. Unfortunately, it's been cancelled, it was just announced yesterday. Yeah, so it's a bit of a dampener again, but I really welcome the news that Secret is here, and hopefully they're here to stay for long term as well, because I think the league needs more names and more competition. You don't just want to see Gam and Flash at the end of every season, right? Yeah, I'm talking objectively. Obviously as the owner of Flash, I would love to see Flash winning every season.
Of course.
Yeah, but at the same time, competition is good for the league. It makes it more diverse, makes it more watchable, makes the product, more competitive. That's why, it's always good to have an organization like Secret coming in, and it also keeps us on our toes as well. We can't afford to be complacent. We can't think that we're the best team in Vietnam right now just because we just won the split. Next split is going to be even harder, right? Because next split is for Wolves. So it's just the start of this long journey, in my opinion, even though we've already been around for a year. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mean to deviate us too much. I'm really interested in that side of things, but I know EveryWei wants to talk more about this split. If we go back onto that,
I'm to answer any questions.
Yeah.
No worries.
I think we can slowly transition into the future as well, as we have teased now as well, because I think this split has been much more competitive. So it's already a step in the right direction. EVOS looked pretty good. Team Secret had some very strong moments. And Flash actually was able to beat Gum. So I'm super excited for the future of the league, because last year, to be honest, in Summer Split, it was a little bit of a letdown in the playoffs, because we all knew, in the end, Gum didn't drop a single best of three in the second half and went 6-0 in playoffs. So it was a bit like, foregone conclusion, I guess. Gum is going to win. So
Yeah.
what are Flash's aspirations for this year for Summer and Worlds? Do you see yourself as one of the main favorites to go into Worlds? And stuff like that.
I mean, I think we're definitely one of the top contenders given the performance of this split. But again, a lot of things can change from now to then. That's why even though we have a really good team right now that's really confident, we're never complacent, and we try and keep the players on their toes as well. We're training even harder right now, even though MSI has been cancelled. We really want to represent Vietnam at Worlds next season as the top seed. Not just the second slot. We really want to prove that that we are that we can be the best in Vietnam in over an extended period of time. Sort of like what Buffalo did, right? So like Buffalo did really well for almost 2 years, I think. And that's a really long time in League of Legends, in Vietnam. To have team name. So it's the kind of like consistency we want to establish. Like we want people to get familiar with Flash going to the World Championship to MSI every year. And obviously that's the ideal situation, but the competition is extremely stiff. But these are the milestones that any team in League of Legends will aim for. Is to go to MSI and Worlds. And in Vietnam, even though it's really competitive, when I look at the LEC, the LCS, China, Korea, it's crazy, man. Like the competition is even higher there. So, honestly, in Vietnam, I think, as long as we keep doing what we're doing and, we don't stay too complacent, we have a really good chance of being the top name in LL for Vietnam going forward.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable aspiration. Flash has an excellent chance at that. On the topic of MSI, obviously, upsetting news that it's been cancelled as League of Legends fans. Can't blame, right? It's the right decision, but it's not one that we want to hear. How has that kind of affected the outlook for the year? Because with the extra slot at Worlds, the fight's perhaps not as hard. You want to be the first seed, obviously, but has that affected the way you're sort of looking at Summer Split? Do you think you're very likely to go to Worlds now? That kind of thing.
I mean, I'm not sure at all because, they've announced that China and I think, is it China,
LEC.
Korea,
No, it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
China and Europe have got an extra.
China and
LCK didn't get one.
So so for the VCS, we're not sure what's in store right now because we're having conversations with Riot, on what are they gonna do for the MSI, the split representatives, right? The split champions, and that's something that now there's no clear answer to yet. They did say in the press release they're exploring alternative events in place of MSI, but obviously it's not gonna top MSI. So it's a bit hard for team owners like us because we do invest a lot in the team every season. So a split's worth of investment is worth a lot, and the fact that we made our first MSI and now it's not going to happen, of course, it's
Yeah,
this, and we understand why Riot has made a decision. We're not contesting that decision at all. On the contrary, we're just trying to come up with a solution that sort of like helps the team owners, especially for the representatives this season, get something back in terms of brand value, media value. It'll be a bit hard, but it's something that we're committed to discovering together with Riot. We're talking to the local team. The local team has access to the global team, and hopefully they come up with a good solution to help the split champions, not just for the VCS but across the world. Yeah.
I hadn't really thought of it from that point of view, but that is a fairly big just bit of publicity. So obviously we all hope a solution is found.
Yeah.
Maybe there can be something like a mini Rift Rivals where PCS first place and VCS player first place face off. That would be cool to see. To have to settle the debate which region is better.
I mean, talking a bit about the PCS, I think, it's quite interesting watching the teams coming out of there. I think it's a lot more competitive than it was because they've sort of combined the best in Taiwan, the best in Southeast Asia. Let's be honest, I think the Southeast Asian League was not very competitive for a long time.
Yeah.
That's generous to say not
Yeah,
very
it wasn't
competitive.
It wasn't even really a league, right? They played some offline tournaments, and then the best came together and played for a small players format to determine the world seed. But yeah, it wasn't even really a league. So
It was quite poorly executed over the last few years for sure. And I think it's a good move that Riot has made to sort of lift up that region again because I do think in Southeast Asia there's also more talent. Countries like Indonesia, Thailand, especially two countries that I can think of that are pretty good in esports in general, but they haven't really had a chance to shine because, there's just nothing to work for there. If you're a League of Legends pro player, there's not even like really a good ecosystem to build around. So, it's a really good move. And, I hope to see more teams from the PCS come up as well because, we're quite close to some of the team owners there.
So a topic, this is something we asked John Yao as well, and it's something our community is very interested in, is would you ever import a player for Flash? Obviously the opportunity would have to be right, but at the moment the VCS is obviously all Vietnamese players. Would you ever bring someone in as an import?
Never say never, but right now it doesn't look likely for the next 2 years at least. I think because in Vietnam, as you guys know, communication and culture is the key factors when it comes to building a League of Legends, any esports team, right? So when you're building a team of individuals together, you really got to make sure they're on the same page, and the basics have to be there. Language is the most basic thing. With our Arena of Valor team when we went to the World Championships. So we've been to the last 3 World Championships in a row. I remember the first one that we went to, we placed second, and that was the one when we used the coach from Taiwan. So it's not really a foreign player, but we did use a foreign coach, and we started to experience some of those communication issues over time. It became bigger and bigger. But we still placed second in our first World Championship. So it wasn't. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then for the next two, we actually sought to a local coach in Vietnam that was really highly rated amongst the community. So that worked out really well for us, just that small switch. Honestly, on the tactical side of things, I would rate them like, they're quite similar in terms of coaching ability. But just the fact that the next coach that we chose was a local coach, I think that helped a lot in terms of the team understanding quickly what they wanted. It's a really key point, I think in any league, it's a bit of a pity as well because we can't showcase different names in the VCS, to the community. But at the same time, in LEC, LCS, there's a lot more foreign talent there because, it's a bit more advanced there, right? Obviously, and the main language is English. So there's a lot more talent they can look at. In Vietnam, it's just Vietnamese. So even unless we build a fully imported team, but that's not possible with the VCS rules. So if you mix a team of Vietnamese and foreigners together, it's a bit hard to handle at the moment, in my opinion. Over time with good translators, good coaches, a good system, it could be possible, but it needs a seriously good execution to pull off, in my opinion. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
And Vietnam is one of the biggest servers as well. So most of the time, you're probably going to look for a rookie instead of a more expensive and more hard to integrate import as well, right? So I think it makes a lot of sense for now to have more Vietnamese players or only Vietnamese players in this league.
Definitely, there's a lot of talent coming out of Vietnam. Every season trying to scout for new talent. We just brought in 2 young players as well. Really talented jungler by the name of Jesh. He has a lot of potential as well long term. He's not quite ready for the big stage yet to play the VCS, but we've been Slayder and the team has been working quite a lot behind the scenes. So we always believe in promoting young talent. I'm a huge fan of football as well and traditional sports. So we always believe that new names for the scene, young names, fresh blood. So it's good, always good for the league. Yeah.
Yeah, just something chat is asking, just as I am watching, is would you more consider a Vietnamese speaking foreigner? Is it the language that's the issue, or is it more getting them to Vietnam, and like why would a player want to import to Vietnam when they could potentially import something?
Language is the main issue, I think. But when you're importing talent, also thinking if they can be there, like if they can adapt to the culture and the way of living in Vietnam, it's a bit different. We try and make players as comfortable as possible in the team house, by Vietnam standards. But I'm not sure about foreigners because Vietnam is still quite an emerging country. So like the Vietnamese local community here is a bit different as well when it comes to that. Again, we never say never to importing foreign talent. We've looked at foreign coaches already, but we decided that we weren't quite ready yet, and we're quite happy with our current coach, 𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗑. He's done a really good job this season as well. In the finals, I think he outdrafted Gam. So we're really happy with him right now, and there's no reason to change, really. Again, I'll say never. Language is still the biggest issue for me, number one factor when it comes to considering foreign talent, whether it's a player or a coach. But beyond language, I think it's really understanding and seeing how they can fit with the team, and also their individual personality as well, because different personalities need to mesh well, especially when they're living quite often inside the gaming house, right? Because in Vietnam, most of the teams are still using the gaming house model. In Europe and other regions, maybe doing more of a training facility model.
Yeah.
A bit different as well. Based on that, it will be quite hard. I think if it evolves to that stage where there's more infrastructure in place, there's a possibility to do more things as well. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
So go ahead, EveryWei.
Go ahead. Yeah, we had some. We of course asked our community for questions beforehand as well, and something that
Yeah,
came up was the
yeah,
how Flash actually got involved with the VCS and the process to enter. From what I've heard, you first got a team in VCSB that actually won the VCSB. Then
yeah,
you sold that team off to QTV, if I'm correct, QG.
yeah,
Yeah, and then re-entered with the current team, like the team that was formerly Sky Gaming, right? So
yeah,
why? Can you talk us through the process and like
yeah,
why
sure.
you first sold your team and then re-entered with a different team again?
So when we first signed that roster in the BCSB, to be honest, that was a bit of a gamble because we weren't sure if they were gonna win the BCSB or not. It's a bit hard to say. And that time, our investment level was very different. We didn't really have the budget to go for a team in the A League. That was our ideal go-to-market
Of
strategy
course.
for Vietnam League of Legends. Obviously you want to make a splash, you want the brand to be seen, perceived as big. So that actually was our first strategy. And just to be clear, when we signed that roster, we actually let them go actually before they played the BCSB finals because we had
Ah,
some. Yeah, at that time we did have some financial issues, and even though we knew there was still quite a good chance they would probably qualify for the A League, at the time we had to make the decision based on where we were. So it wasn't really a decision based on the ability of the team, etc. It was more of a business decision. That's why we
okay.
let it. Yeah, but towards the end they qualified. I was really happy for them, and then QTB sort of went in and brought them in, which is really good. So actually, to be clear, QTB did not pay us any transfer fee. So unfortunately, we did have to let the team go about 2 months before because we couldn't afford running the cost of that team. And also at the time we had to pay certain. Yeah, and then the reason why we managed to make a re-entry into the A League was at that time we managed to raise a significant round of funding for the business. So this is a bit on the business side of things. Anyway, it's public anyway. So we all search up. We actually did a seed round of investment about $1.5 million last year. So we actually had a bit of money to come back and reinvest into the Vietnam League of Legends scene. And that's when we decided, hey, instead of going for a B team again, why don't we just look at an A team that's maybe has the potential to be like a top three and maybe even a world's contender? Because I remember it was around June last year that we started looking at League of Legends again, and that was shortly after we secured our fundraise, and then we started to see which were the teams that made sense in terms of who had the highest potential to make it to Worlds, because that split was also two slots as well, one play-in and one direct to the group stage, right?
Of course. Yeah.
So we looked at the options available at that time. There weren't many. Evos obviously is owned by a Singaporean organization as well. It's also a Singapore company. Um, GAM at the time, obviously also not a team that we could just go in and work with,
Yeah,
because the
fair
bigger,
enough.
yeah, to put it bluntly, then one team that was really interesting to us was SGD, so Sky Gaming Dalak, right? So that was the
Ooh,
full name of the organization.
I think some of
Uh,
our community will be very intrigued about this story. Got some big SGD fans.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's why I'm doing this interview, is to
Yeah,
share more on like the organization, what we've been doing. I'm very open and transparent as long as it's not too sensitive.
yeah, of course.
Um, Yeah, so with Sky Gaming, we really like the roster. Optimus was in that team. They had Slayder, one of the thought to be one of the best ADCs in Vietnam. And last the split before they just finished, I think it was third. I think they lost to Evos in the playoffs. That was the one. Yeah, I still remember that match.
Yeah.
And I think we really like Optimus, and that was the reason why we went in and we started to speak to the team owner of the organization. We wanted to acquire that team under Team Flag. So it was actually a very tight process because at the time when we decided we wanted to go in, we had like maybe 2 weeks to really make it happen because the league was closing. They needed to confirm the teams, the owners. So we had to actually negotiate in the span of like maybe 1 to 2 weeks, I think. So it was something that we managed to pull off. Thankfully, there was a bit of negotiation involved. I'm not really at liberty to say the full value of that acquisition. But I think us in secret, when we bought the local Vietnamese teams organizations, probably the values wouldn't be too far apart. Yeah. So we really like the roster because of Optimus. We also kind of like what they built around the team. So they actually had quite a good media team as well. They had a couple of good guys that were doing great content. That always matters to team owners, because we know that at the end of the day, winning is important, but creating content, creating storylines for the players, branding, all of that is important as well. So we decided to invest in that team in the end. Yeah, and that was how everything came about. I'm sure there'll be more questions.
Sure,
Yeah.
and just addressing the chat for a moment. If you do have questions, I'm watching chat, so feel free to
So,
ask stuff.
speaking of Optimus, he, of course, for me, is a very interesting topic to talk about because we of course only restreamed the original VTV channel, so we don't really have that much inside information. Especially for last summer, we didn't really have anyone to tell us anything about the inside stuff, so we only saw the pictures or the scenes of after Flash's losses. Sometimes Optimus went to Slayder. It seemed like a very serious discussion. The next game Artemis was in, and we were always speculating on what is actually happening there. Does Optimus have some issues with Slayder? Do they not get along? And in the end, we were quite disappointed in Flash's finish as well. We thought, okay, roster-wise, they should be the second-best team. They have a better roster than Loki at the time, but they kind of fell apart. So that's what we felt about Flash. So can you give us some inside information on what actually happened with Yoshino and Slayder? Not Yoshino, Optimus, of course. Optimus and Slayder. And was there indeed a little bit of misunderstanding, maybe a little bit of beef between the two?
Yeah. I think, Slayder respects Optimus a lot, and I think the respect is vice versa as well, because Optimus kind of brought Slayder into the scene, and and he groomed Slayder, they brought Optimus into the team, and I think they hold a respect for each other. I don't think there was a very big dispute. I think it was very difficult last season managing the ADC situation, between Artemis and Slayder. I think a lot of people recognize both of these players as the top ADCs in Vietnam at the time. So Artemis as well had a lot of potential coming through the team, and Slayder was still like the name that usually people would expect to be on the team sheet, right? Instead of Artemis. But last season it was quite difficult to manage the situation internally, from what I understand. So Optimus was sort of like thinking how to juggle between Slayder and Artemis, giving Artemis enough playing time so we could still keep him in the team, keep him happy. Unfortunately, we didn't make that happen. We did sell him to Esports. You know, but at the end of the day, I think Slayder and Optimus, they still have a deep respect for each other. I don't think it's anything that has become a grudge long term. It's just a decision they made in the finals that maybe Artemis would be a good switch. At that point of time. Because we wanted to give some energy to the team. So it's more of a tactical decision, in my opinion. That we decided to make that switch halfway through. So I honestly don't think there's much at all. Don't read
That's
too much
good.
into that.
That's good
That's
news.
Because we saw Optimus drop this season, so there was even more food for thought. So we thought, okay, it seems like the problems really were persisting, and they went with a new mid laner instead. It's good to hear that that's maybe not quite the case.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a personal chat with Optimus, at the end of last season after we lost the playoffs. We did sit down like the day after. We agreed that Optimus is a great player. I have huge respect for him as well. He's been around the scene for the longest time. But I just, we both mutually agreed that we think that the team will be better off starting afresh next season. It's not an easy decision because Optimus is a huge name in League of Legends and he's a great captain, right? And losing him is a blow to any team. But for us, we also had a vision of how we would build the team with and without Optimus. We decided to go with the latter because we felt that we could still be successful, and he has proven that we could still be successful even without him. But all due respect still to Optimus because he was the one who built this team up from scratch. At the end of the day, yes, the team organization previously had a huge part in terms of investing to the team, making sure Optimus got his players. But Optimus was the one who really built this team up, even from last season when we took over the team. So that was really his vision of the best players that he would want to work with in Vietnam, who almost got us there in the end. But yeah.
That's definitely something I've been glad to hear that it's not beef. Decisions have to be made. Obviously, they paid off this split. So. And Slayder in particular was really impressive this split. He was fantastic,
especially in playoffs.
Yeah,
he performed really well. I think during the regular season, a lot of people will look at DA1 as the standout performer in the league. And he was
Absolutely.
just a crazy player right now. We were actually really close to getting the A1 in our team last season.
If Flash had D1, they wouldn't have. Don't even play the league. Just give him the trophy. It's over.
There was a negotiation. In the end, he chose Gam. We're not too bummed about that. We went with KD as our second option. KD has done pretty well as well, so we're not too bummed about that. But we did have that chance to get DA1. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. We were quite close. But thankfully we still have Slayder. Slayder is, he's really developed into one of the most complete players in my opinion. He's not only a great ADC, he reads the game well as well. He does the right calls. We won so many games this season thanks to his shot calling as well. Even in the game, the first half of the split, I think there are a couple of decisions made in game by him that really led to the 2-1 victory as well. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So, what we were to talk about. Do you have this to sort of break up the more serious talk we've been having? This is something we asked John Yao as well. Do you have any funny anecdotes or anything about the team, about players? Obviously, we like them as personalities, not just as players. Obviously, don't throw anyone under the bus, but if you have any funny stories you can share.
Our team, they are quite serious when it comes to training. When they're off training, they're usually still around the gaming house. Eugene has a lot of cats. That's one thing I can think. I don't know whether that's funny, but he calls his cat Watermelon and he runs around the house.
Great, yeah.
Not really anything funny I can think of immediately, but I think, yeah. But for us, we really enjoy our moments with this team, so yeah, if there's one in the future, I'll let you know.
Yeah, all right. Fair enough. So another question from chat then is the motto of Flash is making gamers heroes. Can you tell us what that means to you and why that is the tagline of your organization?
Yeah. We did take a lot of time to think about that tagline even before we invested into Vietnam. We sat down, we came out, we did a whiteboard session. We kind of think oh, does this make sense? Is this what we want to portray? I had to sit down with my management team in Singapore and we kind of decide, at the end of the day, making gamers heroes is something that sort of we all resonated within all of us because all of us are in a way, we're all gamers, right? So that's why we go into esports, and in a way, being a gamer my entire life since I was, really young as well. I started my first game on the Macintosh, played Command and Conquer, and then I played a lot of games after that, and then I remember that when I was growing up in high school, there was a lot of gamers are not necessarily seen as cool and stuff, and they're sort of seen as, sometimes couch potatoes and stuff like that. The media has done a lot to portray that, but it's been a bit unfortunate, but I think it's changed over time because esports has really developed, these gamers into more than just, social recruiters. So nowadays, you see a gamer, in the US, if you're a professional gamer, you'll be seen as really cool and someone that really has a proper career, professional career. So for us, we just want to give that kind of empowerment to our guys, right? And for us, that means more than just the players. It means anybody who's a gamer in our community. So our fans, anybody that's playing games, is something like a sense of empowerment that we want to give to everyone, and the heroes is also something it's a personification of what it means to be, to actually play the game, because you're not just playing a game, but you stand for something a lot bigger than that. Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for that. So glad to hear it.
So one other thing a lot of people are wondering is, of course, how is Yoshino right now? Is he feeling better? Will he be able to play in the summer split? If you don't want to talk about that, it's absolutely fine as well. But yeah, a lot of people are worried about Yoshino because, of course, missing all of players is very unfortunate. It's also super sad for us to see him win 2 titles back to back, and both times he didn't get the chance to actually play a playoff game. So we want to see him get better and be able to play.
I think with Yoshino, his situation is a bit tough right now. So we don't really have an expected date of recovery right now. It's actually it's not like a short-term health problem. So I won't really go into details because
Yeah,
I
of
don't
course
think
not.
Of course, of
there's
course.
been much details of his health condition revealed yet. But just to speak of it briefly, I think next season it really depends on where he is at the start of the season. If he's fit enough to play, then maybe, as you all can see from our recent content, he's still in the game house, he's still living with them, he's just been isolated. Just to clear it up, it's not the coronavirus. Just to clear it up, it's not COVID. But he does have a situation where it's a bit hard for him to really compete with the team right now. Even in training right now, we're mostly training with Stark. So we're sort of taking it as Stark is going to be starting next season. But we do hope that way through the next season that Yoshino will be able to make a comeback, maybe the second half. Yeah.
Okay, well, we obviously wish him the best. Our community very much loves Yoshino, so all the best to him.
Yeah.
Not good when people can't play because of health issues, but I'm glad to hear that being looked after. So bad that he's not in the gaming house.
Yeah, he's actually still fine on a day-to-day basis. He's absolutely fine. It's just that his situation doesn't really allow him to be the rest of the team. It's hard for me to go into details, but
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
just in terms of he's still fine on a personal level. We do expect him to recover. We're just not sure when. So sort of like similar to sports, he's got an injury that sort of like has kept him out of the game. He's gonna keep him out of the game for the time being until he gets better. We're closely monitoring the situation. If there's any major updates, you can expect to hear from us on our social media. We'll announce something. Yeah, I think. But honestly, I do expect him to be better by the second half of the year. Yeah.
Good.
That's good to hear. I wish him a speedy recovery, of course, as well. Maybe even faster than you expect. Maybe you can see him in the first few weeks already.
Fingers crossed.
Always hyped to see him play. I think he's a very, very fun player to watch.
So, we've gone through most of our list of what we wanted to talk to you about. So, chat, this is your last chance to get things in before. Yeah, I think we can start wrapping up, unless you have anything you'd like. Actually, that's something chat has immediately brought up. They're quick on the trigger. You mentioned earlier Jesh as someone you were trying to bring up to VCS level. He's not quite there yet. But you also picked up PinkA.
Yeah.
Is that a similar situation? And to just take the straight from chat, could you elaborate a bit on those two and how you integrate trainees into the main?
Yeah, I think right now, our support situation, if you talk about PinkA, CBL has done really well this season. Last season he was still a bit shaky, I know there was a bit of concern about him in the team last season, but this season he's really done really well. There's been almost zero complaints. Even in the finals, Gam was first banning, I think, Trash, which speaks
He
a
was
lot.
insane. He was our serious MVP, actually.
Yeah, he was insane.
Really good player right now for us, and unfortunately, I don't think we see PinkA displacing him anytime soon. But again, we want to keep competition fresh in the squad. We want our team to always feel like there's always new people coming up. Of course, if they stay competitive, they perform well. Their position is still there. But we always want them to feel like there's competition within the squad. I think that's the basis of building. It's a squad game at the end of the day. It's not just a 5-man team, right? If we're looking at this, it's bigger than that. I think in traditional sports, it's a lot more focused on the squad game. But right now, esports is still very much focused on the main team having the best 5, right? But I do hope that situation changes over time because it gives a chance for the substitute players or the younger players to have a chance to come into the main team throughout the course of the season, right? So PinkA does have a lot of potential as well, but right now, we are just finding a way to really integrate the youth talent into the team. On a day-to-day basis, they are living together. They do train together in the same room, so we don't really do that. We don't really separate the youth team and the main team in kind of thing. Yeah, so we kind of try and give them the sense of playing together. Right now, it seems to be working out okay. So we always make adjustments as we go along. But right now, I think we do have a really good squad that's ready for the second half of the split. Not just the main team, but names that are coming up. We've also talked about bringing in new names throughout the course of the transfer window. Haven't really thought of like any concrete decisions yet, but we're discussing right now on the management level. We don't expect to make a lot of changes actually in the transfer window because we're quite happy with the current squad. We don't really want to bring in a name or let someone go at the moment. But that
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
yeah, but that might change over the course before the start of next season. That might change, depending on who's available, what kind of conversations we have. Yeah, but by and large, we are quite happy with the squad we have, and we want to make sure that there's a huge sense of belonging within that squad and sense of unity, so that we're going to the next bit on high confidence. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I mean, everything chat is wanting to ask is just about Optimus. Though
I don't
think,
mind. Another question.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to retread that ground, is how did the team culture change when Optimus left? Because obviously he is a super senior player, very respected, and very well deserved that respect. How did the team culture kind of change, and how much was he involved in sort of the direction the team took, like in game wise? Like, was he almost like a half coach / player? How was that working?
Yeah, he's actually very active. He plays a huge position in terms of how the team sets up, how the team trains on a daily basis. So basically, he's like the soul of the team, right? Everything that the team does is based on his direction, in a way. So it wouldn't be far off to say that. I think there's pros and cons to that style of leadership. The pros is that obviously you've got a very structured system. You need to have all the players follow Optimus left. If he goes left, you go left. If he goes right, you go right. That kind of thing. But on the con side, I think sometimes it can get a bit intense in the game house. Like when we're training and we lose games, and then it gets a bit. Sometimes there's no space to relax or breathe in a way. That's what I feel. Based on working with the team and speaking with my managers, looking at how the team works daily. And I think that's good and bad. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I didn't say Optimus style is good or bad. It's just that he has a lot of experience. That's why he leads the team that way. The fact is that this season, after Optimus has left, I think the team still maintains a very good routine. Because Slayder does carry on a bit of Optimus footsteps. So Slayder is also a bit like Optimus, but it's slightly less intense. So the team has a bit of more room to breathe in a way, even when they lose games. Last season I think when we lost games, there will be a very bad atmosphere in the team sometimes. It wouldn't really be the best for the team. And I think going to the playoffs, we were quite low on confidence as well, especially after day one when we got wrecked by Gam. It was honestly we wouldn't have lost to Loki. I think if we weren't so low on confidence. That's my opinion. Yeah, yeah. So it's a bit. I don't want to speak bad about Optimus in any way, but this is just my personal thought. After having team looking at how the team operates. I do feel that this season we have quite a different system, different approach to the game. It's actually paid off for us. Optimus has a new team as well, Overpower Gaming. So I wish all the best to him. I hope he sets up another successful team like he did for us.
Yeah. Hopefully, we want more good teams in the VCS because that makes it a lot more fun to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's about draws us to a close. We've been going for a while. Thank you so much for coming and having a chat to us. It's really a massive treat when industry people do come and have a talk to us.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm consistently surprised that anyone wants to, but
Thank you
here
very
we
much.
are. I think we learnt a lot. Hopefully everyone that's watching learnt something. And go Flash. Defend that title.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. And, I just want to give a shout out to you guys because I think you guys are doing a great job running this channel on your own with limited resources as well, So it's really great the job you've done and, really helps to lift the profile of the VCS and Vietnam in general. That's why I came on board.
Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. We've got we don't have many resources, right? We do have a very dedicated community. Constantly make sure everything we put out is high level.
And of course, chat, remember to follow all the Flash players and Mr. Terence Ting as well on Twitter and enjoy their content.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much again. Good luck for next split.
Cheers. See you guys soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.